You know, leave it to Indiana football, right? To kick off as a 10.5 point underdog on Saturday, go down 14-3, and still make you come away from that game thinking, gosh darn it, they should have won. They really should have finished that deal. Well, that's Indiana football for you folks. And we'll get to IU's 3-4 record now. They're on a 4-game losing streak. The offensive line got better and the offense looked a little bit more explosive. We'll talk about football, but first, Indiana men's basketball comes in number 13 in the preseason AP Top 25. We're going to dive into IU basketball, ask an interesting question or two with the first exhibition less than 2 weeks away, and so much more here on episode 268 of the Hoosier Sound, where we're the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Monday, October 17th, 2022, where I am your host, Nathan Krishnan. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host and Hoosier Sound co-founder, Matt Lukens, as well as our favorite Indiana HQ contributor, Charlie Mason. Matt, you weren't on last week. Indiana's men's basketball team comes in ranked number 13 in the preseason AP poll. It's the top spot among all Big Ten teams. Michigan came in at 22, Illinois came in at 23, a handful of other Big Ten teams, including Purdue and Iowa and Rutgers, received votes in the AP Top 25. It's early, I understand, but it's got to make you feel good that Indiana's in the AP Top 25 for the first time since 2019, first time in the top 15 since 2017. This is, Matt, the first time Indiana's in the top 15 since the Tom Crean era. It's a positive step in the right direction. Number 13, how did that make you feel?
I felt fine about it. Honestly, I was kind of happy that we were number 13 and not number 6 because preseason rankings don't mean anything, right? They are people's projections on pieces of name on paper and past performances, right? There's nothing concrete that you can look at and go, yeah, that team deserves number 1. Because there's always, you could be like, well, I don't know about UNC, even though they return a lot of the people from a Final Four team, like they were pretty lucky to make it the Final Four last year.
Weren't they like a 9 seed or an 8
they were
seed?
they were like a 9 or an 8 seed. They were on the bubble for a while there, right?
Totally,
so there was a chance they didn't even make the tournament. Then they make the tournament, they go on this run. Now they add in some transfers, so that maybe they're a little bit better and deeper. But are you sure they should be number 1? Like there can be an argument made for every team on it, that a reason why they won't do well or a reason why they will do well. And that's just how college basketball is in the preseason, right? That's how every sport is. But preseason expectations come with, well, their expectations, right? They come with pressure, right? And so being a top 10 team, being number 6 in the country, like you would be if Andy Katz was in charge of the AP top 25, would come with a giant burden of expectations, of which I'm not sure this team could live up to. But you take us down 7 or 8 spots and you put us at number 13, all of a sudden things start to seem a little bit lighter around the program, right? There's not the burden of you are clearly a top 10 team. You should be winning 25 games this season. You should be going into Lawrence and not only competing, but possibly winning that game, right? Now it's like, just be competitive, right? And that's a better expectation for this team, which I think they will pass over and jump over and leap over quite easily, because I believe that this team is going to be well put together to start the season. Again, teams that normally return a lot of members that have played together before and have some chemistry are much better early on in the season. And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, when we preview the Big Ten and Big Ten basketball. But there are a lot of teams in the Big Ten that aren't going to be themselves until about late January, early February, because they're putting together a lot of pieces. Like Illinois is. I think Michigan's going to be doing the same. Like, yes, they're returning great players. Yes, they have great talent coming in, but these teams take time to coagulate, to get together, to bond, right? Whereas Indiana, basically the entire starting lineup that we think is going to exist on day one. For either 4 out of the 5 or 5 out of the 5 players all played together in the same lineup last year. Yeah. So it's a matter of, can Indiana get better as the season goes on? And hopefully they don't plateau in early December, like late December, early January,
we've
seen it. Or can they keep improving as the year goes on and expanding and becoming more dynamic as a team? Because if they can do that, then all of a sudden what I'm going to talk about as far as projections goes for the season will take place. But if they can't do that, then all of a sudden now the preseason ranking of 13 looks way overestimated. So they have to improve as the year goes on. I think they'll be fine at the beginning of the season. Or if they're not fine at the beginning of the season, then we have serious problems.
Right. You would think Indiana,
that's a whole different story.
Indiana has an edge on their opponents, right? In the start of the season with so many players.
Absolutely.
Totally agree. Fun fact, last year, the preseason number 13 in college basketball was Oregon, who ended up winning 20 games and missed the NCAA tournament.
Can we just not bring that fact up? That's a terrible fact.
NIT bid this year would possibly let a program ablaze. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. We don't make the tournament this year. I don't think Woodson's in a job.
We will be.
I don't think Woodson's in a job next year, guys. I don't think so.
This will be a women's basketball podcast only. Yes. That's what will happen. That's exactly what will happen. Charlie, Mike Woodson did speak during Basketball Media Day last Tuesday after our most recent podcast episode. Woodson said a lot of the stuff that Matt said a moment ago, as far as, look, preseason hype, how much stock can you really put into it? Woodson's specific quote to the media last Tuesday in Minneapolis was, you've got to go out and play. I remember when we were ranked number 1 and didn't get it done. You've got to prove it out there on the basketball floor. Woodson talked about the competitiveness among the true freshmen this upcoming season. Players like Jalen Hood-Schifino, Caleb Banks, CJ Gunn, Malik Renault. Charlie, your boots on the ground on campus in Bloomington. Little less than a couple of weeks out right now. What's the vibe you're getting from the students, from the alumni, from the fan base? You were at Hoosier Hysteria as IU heads into their first exhibition game in 2 Saturdays.
The ranking, when it came out, wasn't shocking to me. It wasn't shocking to a lot of my friends. But there was a little talk on the street today. I definitely saw some people repping some IU basketball gear, had a couple conversations with some fellow Hoosier basketball fans, and they were fairly confident that IU was actually ranked lower than they should have been, which was an interesting take because, like Matt just pointed out, it's a preseason ranking. It means nothing as of right now. I think that the first half of the season is really going to help them live up to that number 13 standard that's being set. I think it's going to inflate their image a little bit. And then the biggest test of all is just getting through that January and February hump into March. Here's the thing. IU's 13 ranking leaves them with room to grow, which is great. It's great for any program that's good enough to be in the top 10. Genuinely, I believe that they're good enough to be in the top 10. But, we still have to wait to see what happens. There's room to grow. The IU community is so, it's incredible. I've never seen an I said it last time. I'm going to say it again. I've never seen an organization that has this many fans that are this dedicated and committed to admitting that their team is going to win a national championship this early on in the season. Obviously, everybody's like, "Oh,
why bother with the games, Charlie? It's not even worth it."
We are plus 5,000 according to Vegas, so Vegas doesn't like our odds. But they have Gonzaga favored, and we've seen how that's done for Gonzaga in the past. So, what does Vegas know? What does Vegas knows? Nothing. Bunch of suckers.
Do you have the list of teams in front of you there, Matt? Is there another Big Ten team ranked higher than Indiana?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So off the top of my head, I believe Michigan is at 3,500, and then Illinois is at 5,000 with us. Makes sense. Off the top of my head.
Interesting that the top tier seems to be Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois. I don't think it'll end up that way. I can't really sit here and tell you which team's going to drop out and which team will get added.
Really?
I feel like every year Iowa and Wisconsin are underrated. It wouldn't shock me to see either of those teams get into the mix. Why are we not talking about Tom Izzo in Michigan State as far as the extreme top tier? Matt
Because they don't have a
Painter's
center.
Matt
They don't have a
Painter.
center.
Matt Painter is running a steady program at Purdue, and
Purdue's the correct answer here, I think.
Zach
Sadly,
Edey's a
yes.
monster. And so
Nathan, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm on another podcast which I'll shout out. So that's Big Ten Coast to Coast with Ant Right.
Go for it.
But so we cover, the Big Ten as a whole. I will tell you that after talking to a bunch of people, fans from all these other fan bases, I will tell you this is my assumption. The top 3 teams will be the top 3 teams at the end of the year. There will be a 4th team added to that tier 1 list, and that'll be Purdue. But the top 3 teams right now will stay there. But Illinois will not be in that top tier to begin the season. Again, like I said, they are adding in so many pieces, right? They are not going to be a full team until February or March. They might be the best team in the Big Ten come March, right? They very much could. They could be the most dynamic. They might have the best shot at making a Final Four, but they are not going to be a complete team until the end of January. So they will not win the league.
They'll take a step back and then maybe take a couple steps forward. You saw that last season with Illinois, but even with Coburn returning, lost to Cincinnati. I believe they lost to Marquette. And then, of course, you saw them end up with a double bye into the Friday of the Big Ten tournament where, in case you may have forgotten, Indiana beat them.
They took an L.
Mike Woodson talked about how he loves playing a tough schedule. His comment during media day was, look, opportunity to play some of the best teams in the country is exactly what you want. It's good to see just to see where you are as a ball club. Overall, you can feel like the mentality and the mindset of the men's basketball team is where it needs to be here as practices keep going forward. Matt, is 13 too high, too low, or just right? Charlie was talking about how IU fans say, oh, it's too low. What do you think?
Look, like the porridge and the bears, the classic
Goldilocks.
Goldilocks. Yeah, it's just right. I think I could see anywhere from 13 to like 16, right? Because again, that's a preseason projection of us making the Sweet 16, and then it's like a 50-50 whether we make it out or not. I see that, right? Like I will go into that when we talk about preseason projections for the team as a whole, but I think this is the perfect spot for them. I know I get some people want them to be top 10. I get that. But based off of last year's season and just kind of going into this season and the teams that are above them, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Charlie, what about you? It's still 3 weeks away before the season starts. Again, less than 2 weeks until exhibition season. But for you, too high, too low, or this is about where they should be?
Personally, again, the IU students seem to disagree with that. I am going to take the other side, the opposing side. I think it's a little too generous.
Yeah.
This IU team's getting a lot of hype. Now, obviously, they seem to deserve it. They, showed out last year, made the tournament, had a couple big wins. But I think that IU really has to gain momentum before they can be considered a top 25 team. That dynamic that you were talking about, that's really going to come into play the second half of the season. So right now, do I think they're number 13 in the nation? No. I think they're a top 20 team in the nation. I don't think that they deserve 13.
I think, I'll be honest with you, I think it's too low. Look, we've said here that Indiana is bringing back a lot of existing talent. Trace Jackson-Davis is a preseason All-American. Jalen Hood-Schifino is a 5-star incoming freshman who looks every bit
10 freshman,
every bit of the part, and he's someone who, on the surface, seems like will fit in easily into what Mike Woodson and Kenya Hunter and Yasir Rosemond and Brian Walsh want to do as far as the staff is concerned. And guess what? Indiana's going to play some high-profile basketball games, right? And they're going to go to Xavier. If they beat Xavier and start the season 6-0, you better believe the AP top 25 voters will want to have Indiana really, really high up there to sell that IU North Carolina game on November 30th. So if Indiana takes care of their business against Xavier in Cincinnati in the third game of the year, it would not shock me to see Indiana with a very, very, very small number next to their name going into that North Carolina game. Could it be a top 5 matchup in Bloomington? It would not shock me. So, look, we'll see how it plays out. Of course, if Indiana loses to Xavier, we're just going to delete this part of the podcast out. So that's all I'm going to say.
That's great with me. That's
no,
a great
it will be
plan.
erased from history.
Delete the messages.
This was our weekly podcast poll over on the Hoosier Sound. Make sure you give us a follow, like, retweet our stuff over there if you have not already. The question was, do you think Indiana's preseason number 13 ranking is too high, too low, or just right? 50% agree with you, Matt, and say it's just right. 13 is a good spot. Let the season get underway and see where it goes from there. 38.9% of people agree with you, Charlie, and say it is too high. They say, look, maybe in March, it's only October 17th. And then the 11% of lunatics agree with my perspective that, look, if Indiana takes care of business against Xavier a couple weeks into the year, this could be a number 8, 7, 6.
But that's the point. We're in the perfect spot where if we prove it, we move up. If we don't prove it, the AP voters don't look stupid. So it's fine. Because if you put a team in the top 10 that doesn't deserve to be in the top 10, everybody makes it a big deal. If you put them in the top 15, then people are like, oh, they just were overrated to begin the year. It's fine. But like, I think we're in that perfect perspective where it's like, prove it. We think you could be good. Prove it to us. And I think that's exactly where we should be.
And I just look at this and I say, maybe, just maybe, as we've seen with the Big Ten, the all Big Ten preseason teams, people are underrating Xavier Johnson just a little bit. People are underrating Jalen Hood-Schifino just a little bit. And if Indiana has elite point guard play, which, by the way, used to be a collection of Rob Finney, Al Durham, and Christian Lander, and now Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Not a bad switch up.
Look, again, it's not a knock on the other players. Just Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino are highly, highly regarded across the the landscape of college basketball.
By the way,
changes things quite significantly.
Shout outs to the University of Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for both of them. I appreciate that.
You guys can look into that. But yes, and this leads us to another question. Charlie, I'm curious to get your thoughts here as you're just getting going in your college journey. You haven't even covered a men's basketball game for us at Indiana HQ. But look, this is an Indiana basketball team that's gone through some battle scars over the last few years, right? You saw a coach getting fired not even 2 full years ago. You saw a team that scratched and clawed to make the NCAA tournament last year. With a number of players coming back, the highly touted 5-star freshman point guard and combo guard and Jalen Hood-Schifino coming in, with the overarching theme of we got to figure out 3-point shooting over the course of the season. Indiana's ranked number 13. It's not out of the question that an Elite 8 Final Four contention is in the cards. What does a really good IU men's basketball team look like to you this season? As far as pace of play, as far as execution, offense, defense, it's very open-ended on purpose. But what does a really good IU basketball team look like to you this season?
I think aside from the obvious that 3-point shooting needs to be a priority for this team, I want to see the guards step up. You talked about Xavier Johnson and Hood-Schifino. I want to see that dynamic start to build a little bit. Obviously, you've got new player, old player, veteran, youngster, but there's a lot to learn from other teams in the Big Ten that have found success with their guards. I think that for IU, being able to offensively not only unlock the post, the paint, but being able to shoot the ball effectively, whether it's deep or whether it's from mid-range, just the elbow, just something. Generating offense with the two guards is the most important thing that IU has to focus on right now if they want to be a contender for an Elite 8 appearance, a Final Four appearance. That's going to get them potentially a banner. I think that unlocking that is potentially banner worthy. That's pretty broad though. More specifically, I think that IU, to be a great basketball team, has to work and listen to Mike Woodson. You have to do that. He came in, Nathan, you mentioned this in a previous podcast, I believe, that Mike Woodson saw that there were a lot of turnovers.
Yes.
So he said, hey, we're going to fix turnovers. And they
Yes.
did
Yeah.
significantly.
You got to keep it to 12. 12 turnovers was the max. We figured it out.
Simple coaching like that got IU into the position that they are right now at number 13. And it's going to be simple coaching tactics like that are going to get IU to the place that they want to get to, as long as they listen, keep their heads on. If they keep their emotions in check, I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. But Xavier Johnson he's had some, outbursts, some frustration has been shown on the court. I think that if the guards listen to Woodson, if the team listens to Woodson, they've got a shot.
Yeah, I really liked how you looked at it from a psychological standpoint there, Charlie, because once you're kind of seeing this in college football now, right? Once you get into the middle of the season, things drag on. We've talked about how the schedule is going to challenge Indiana this year. Between the ears, in the locker room, that almost makes as much of a difference, if not a bigger difference, than the X's and O's on the court. Matt, how about you? What does, as you put your, your future vision goggles on, what does a really good IU basketball team look like to you?
Okay, so normally I'm the guy that likes to talk and throw adjectives out there and say togetherness and talk about I'll be the person that stick-to-itiveness. I'll talk about 3-point percentage. I'll let Charlie do that this podcast. I'm gonna go specifics here. I'm gonna go actually very specifics. I'm gonna go Ken Pom ratings. Okay. Ooh. We're going Ken Pom ratings. Okay. A good IU basketball team has a decent offense. And what I mean by decent offense is I don't mean top 50. I mean top 25. I'm talking anywhere from 25 to 15. They need to be dynamic. I don't care how they score. I don't care what they do. They could be in the background doing witch voodoo craft. I do not care. Okay. They just have to get into that 25 to 15 range.
Is that a major? Is that a major at IU? Can you get a witchcraft degree? I don't know.
There is a make your own major.
We'll do the research.
So you could probably do that. Anyways, there is also defense to talk about, and now everybody wants to harp on 3-point percentage, which rightfully so. Everybody wants to harp on the guard play, rightfully so. Everybody wants to talk about how Trace Jackson-Davis should be the best player in the country. Rightfully so. The defense was good last year. I believe we finished in the top 20 in Ken Pom as far as defensive rating went. I believe.
I can pull it. It was close.
Check that. It was close. It was top 30, we'll say. I think for sure. It was close, right? We were towards the top of the country in defensive rating last year and defensive efficiency as a whole on Ken Pom. This year, it needs to go
24th.
Yes, thank you. Stop 25. So we're 24. That needs to take a 20-point jump, okay, for this team to have the success they want to be. And preseason, they're ranked in that, by the way, as well. I believe they're ranked top 5 in Ken Pom as far as defensive efficiency. That needs to stay there, okay, or at least top 10. This team needs to be a top 25 offensive team and a top 10 defensive team, and they need to bring that defense every single night because that's how this team is going to win games. They are going to make games more comfortable if they can play offense, but they are sure as hell not going to win games on offense. They're going to win games on defense, especially with this team. The length, the athleticism on the defensive end. Look, you adding in 2 freshmen that also bring that as well. That is going to be the bread and butter of this team. Is going to be defense, and they're going to create a lot of offensive opportunities, by the way, if they play a top 10 defense. So they need to keep that Ken Pom rating in the top 10 all year if they're going to have the success in which, we want them to have, which is to go to a Final Four and possibly win a Big Ten title and possibly win a national title. They're going to need to have a top 5 defense.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I almost look at it at a different way. Even thinking about the 2 Final Four Cinderellas for the last 2 years. That was North Carolina most recent season, and then it was UCLA the previous season. Both of those teams had a top 20 offense in the country per Ken Pom. And when it's all said and done, Mike Woodson's an NBA coach with a treasure trove of options offensively. And the number I'm going to be focusing on squarely is top 20 Indiana offensive efficiency this upcoming season. You have no shot of a Final Four appearance if your slumping and struggling to score points throughout the course of the season. And, last year, that was a big problem for Indiana for long stretches. IU finished with a 95th rating, 95th in the country per KenPom as far as offensive rating is concerned. You got to score. And what I also envision with this Indiana basketball team is having that athleticism edge in every game that they play. If I'm hearing that Indiana's going to play Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino and Race Thompson and Trace Jackson Davis, and off the bench, we're bringing in Tamar Bates and Malik Renault and Trey Galloway and CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks, and we've got Miller Kopp who's starting as well, who's had so much experience in the big time. Indiana should have an athleticism advantage in every game they play this season, with the exception of maybe North Carolina and maybe Kansas.
Every other game they Miller Kopp an athleticism advantage in the same sentence.
You may have noticed he was the last person that I listed, but he is someone who does the last piece of this and hello, hits a 3-point shot, right? I mean, someone's got to make those from downtown. And if it's not Miller Kopp, Indiana's going to have a really big problem figuring out who that next person is. If that means you got to play CJ Gunn and Anthony Leal a lot to hit threes, that's going to be a decision that Mike Woodson will have to make in the middle of the season. So to me, bottom line, maybe we give this team a few weeks to figure it out early, but at the end of the day, you have got to consistently be in the top 20 in the country as far as offensive efficiency is concerned. You've got to have the athleticism advantage. You've got to be first to rebounds. You've got to be capitalizing on fast break opportunities. You have to be putting defenses in compromised positions where they're committing fouls and they're hesitating and they're not sure what to do. And then you have to find 3-point answer through Miller Kopp or CJ Gunn or Anthony Leal or Xavier Johnson or Jalen Hood-Schifino or Tamar Bates or whoever that could be. Don't think it'll be Trace Jackson Davis. That is the occasional shot if it's there. So when it's all said and done,
please don't become a 3-point. I mean, please become a 3-point sniper if you can, but like, let's not force it if it's not working.
Yeah.
Don't force it.
Hey, if it's a thing, let it be a thing. But I have little reason to believe.
Imagine he starts shooting 35% out of the blue. It's not impossible.
As crazy as you make it sound. I mean, in the NBA, we've seen it. All of a sudden, guys like Al Horford and Brook Lopez.
Look, I saw Dwight Howard make a 3-pointer the other night. So like, it's DeAndre Jordan. I saw DeAndre Jordan shooting threes. So like, it's not impossible. Yeah, it's DeAndre Jordan. He can't make free throws and he's shooting 3-pointers. Well, actually, that kind of sounds familiar.
Something to think about. But again, not something I'm anticipating here going into this upcoming season. I'm more than willing to be pleasantly surprised. But that, folks, pretty much is where we sit as far as IU men's basketball is concerned. Yeah, preseason, number 13. Wonderful to see IU back in the top 25. While you may say it doesn't shape your expectations or whatever for this upcoming season, it is a step in the right direction. Again, it's very hard to win a national championship or make a Final Four if you're not consistently in the top 25. So seeing Indiana there as far as preseason number 13, encouraging. And of course, I'm curious to hear what the fans have to say as far as your vision for what a really good IU basketball team looks like this season. You better believe these are the conversations that Mike Woodson and his staff have had all off season. So with that said, folks, we're going to talk about football in a minute, but first it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports, and it was great to see Indiana recognize their Hall of Fame class. I especially love seeing Don Fisher and DJ White and Ashley Benson get the recognition that they deserve. DJ White and Ashley Benson. I especially saw Ashley Benson play when I was an undergrad at IU, an unbelievable player on the court as far as the volleyball program is concerned. DJ White, no one has a bad word to say about him. Nope. College or the pros. It's great to see him getting recognition there. And of course, Don Fisher, the legendary announcer as well. So all in all, really nice weekend for the IU Hall of Fame class. I can't wait to see who else gets inducted here over the next handful of years. But when it's all said and done, hey, maybe there's a future DJ White or an Ashley Benson at Indiana right now. And hey, we'll see how that goes over the course of the next few years. If you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. And this part is important, folks. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast to reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. Look, we're not a big TV network. We're not a giant newspaper. So that's exactly how we spread the word as far as the Hoosier Sound is concerned. Charlie, Indiana fell to Maryland on Saturday afternoon, a 38-33 loss. The offensive line got better. We did see improvement there. They did not allow a sack after the first quarter on 38 pass attempts. Connor Bazelak looked okay. Couple of brutal interceptions, but also caught a ball down the sideline through the Philly special and made a number of other good throws. Indiana did not have A.J. Barner or Jalen Williams or Cam Jones. And somehow, Charlie, for Indiana, a team that kicked off as a big underdog, we are left angry and aggravated because IU had the lead when Talia Tagovailoa exited the game. And then IU ended up losing. What were your big takeaways, 1 or 2 or 3 from that Indiana-Maryland game? IU does sit at 3-4 now, but I don't know. They've got 5 games left, and you could say 3 of them are winnable.
Well, it's obvious that the turnovers have to stop. If it wasn't clear from watching the game, looking at the numbers from the season, turnovers kill the momentum, and IU is a momentum-based team. They're super streaky. Everybody knows that. Everybody who watches IU football knows that. So stopping the turnovers, that's simple. That's up front. That's what I saw. Secondly, stopping the catch and run. I don't understand how the IU secondary, I don't know where they learned to tackle or if they did learn how to tackle, because watching that game made me so upset with the secondary coaching staff, whoever's teaching anybody how to tackle on that team, because it's really hard. When you have Cam Jones in the game, it's different because he knows what he's doing. He's a leader on the team. Aaron Casey knows what's up. There are some core players that know how to get the job done. Secondaries are not those players, and it showed big time.
Yeah, especially when the margins are so slim for this program. Matt, we did not get your thoughts on Indiana firing Darren Hiller last week. We saw improvement up front, but same question overall to you. Just your overall takeaways as far as Indiana's 38-33 loss to Maryland on Saturday.
I actually this is a much grander spiel, but I warned these two lovely gentlemen. I had a rant prepared. Here's the rant. So I was looking around the landscape of college football this weekend, and I was so happy to watch that Tennessee-Alabama game alongside the Hoosier game while I was driving to Nashville, but that's a whole different. We're not going to talk about that. Anyways, I watched that game, and I was happy to watch that game. It was fun. It was a big game. As a neutral observer, they played fantastic football. I mean, it was entertaining from minute 1 to literally the last second of the game. It was great. Trace and Grace obviously enjoyed it themselves as well, if you saw on social media. But then I also looked around college football landscape, and I saw UNC at 6-1. I saw Kansas being ranked, and they lost a big game this weekend, but I don't think anybody can blame them. They don't really have a defense. I think that's their second loss of the season. I looked around and I saw UCLA ranked in the top 10. I looked around and I saw Kentucky knock off Florida. And I believe they're also currently ranked.
Mississippi State, but yeah.
Mississippi State, sorry. Yeah, but they're currently ranked. I looked around and I saw Duke take UNC to a close game, and they've had a pretty good season too. What do all these schools have in common, you might ask? Well, these are the other college basketball blue bloods.
Syracuse too. Don't forget them.
They're Syracuse, yes,
18th
as well.
In the country, yeah,
it's 18th in the country, and they're having quite the season. And I look around and I go, what are these college football programs doing differently than Indiana? And the answer is they're putting more money into the program, right? They are committing to their football program, right? UCLA they could have gotten a mediocre coach for the football program. No one goes to UCLA football games. Okay, they have better things to do. It's LA. Crowds are rough. Right. They could just be like, we're a basketball school. It's fine. We're UCLA. We have, like we're UCLA. Yeah. Anyways, they went and they committed. They got Chip Kelly, who, by the way, is a way better coach than they should have gotten. Right. Like we're talking about tiers of coaching and where their schools should be hiring from. Chip Kelly is above UCLA as far as just like a historical program, right? It just is. He's there. They're the nerd, the IT guy that has now a trophy wife, right? That is Chip Kelly, okay? But they went and they got him, and they paid the money to get him, and they are cherishing him now, right? They're in the top 10. People are talking about they're better than USC right now, and they have a better basketball team than USC right now as well. Like, I mean, being a USC fan right now has to suck. But anyways, like, and they get to move to the Big Ten now because of it. And now people are like, wow, look, UCLA football is a great addition to the Big Ten. You would not have said that 6 months ago. Okay. You look at Kansas, and they went and got a guy that won national championships in Division III, and they
Lance Leipold. Yes,
Lance Leipold. Yeah, they brought him up, and now he's given life to a even more lifeless football program than Indiana, right? He's done that.
Not even close, right? Not even.
It's not even UNC. Again, you think about UNC football. They're a couple tiers below who Mac Brown should be coaching at. But they went and they put the money where their mouth is, and they went and got Mac Brown. Good. Dino Babers at Syracuse needed new assistants, right? They were not doing well. They went and they paid money this past year to get better assistants, and now they've started the year, I believe, 6-1. Or they might even be undefeated, honestly. They might be 7-0. I correct me if I'm wrong. But they're undefeated. Duke fired their longtime head coach, hired who everybody loved, and they hired some new guys, and they put some new blood into the program, and the program is better off for it. Okay? All these things, Kentucky went and hired
Mark
Stoops. I love Tom Allen. Don't get me wrong. He's a great guy. I think he makes the team enjoyable to root for. But I think as a fan base, we've got to have to start having discussions about whether he's actually the right guy or not. Because so many
especially if it's going to get tougher with USC and UCLA coming in.
And it's not even just that, Nathan, because I think there's people missing the bigger picture here, which is that even though we're like one of the founding members of the Big Ten, that doesn't mean we are not disposable as a program, right? Because when it comes to the conference and it comes to the national landscape of college sports, the sport that pays the most is college football, whether we like it or not as college basketball lovers, right? Indiana's relevant in college basketball. We have been for a very long time. It's a fantastic sport or whatever, but football is king, right? It just is. It pays the most. It gets the most attention. It gets the most eyes. If Indiana stays at worst mediocre, right? Or I mean, at best mediocre, which they have been under Tom Allen. I know we had the 2 seasons that were 8-win seasons, but an 8-win season at most schools is a mediocre season. Okay. So if we stay at the, let's say 5-7 this year, or 4-8, or 3-9, we stay around that range, we are disposable for the Big Ten because they're in an arms race with the SEC to be the overarching conference, right? And they don't need teams like Indiana in that conference.
Yeah, especially if you're saying Northwestern is your Vanderbilt. Right? Like,
Exactly. They don't need these teams. And if I'm Vanderbilt, I'm scared the SEC is going to do the same. Like, what stops the Big Ten from going, I'm sorry, but, contract's up. Like,
cutthroat. College football is cutthroat more than ever now.
And what I'm trying to say here is that I believe the athletic department needs to get a grip and go, look, either we back Tom Allen and we go and pay better assistants and we go and we put our money where our mouth is. Yeah. Or maybe Tom's not the guy, love him to death. We try to promote him to like president of the football program or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
and you go and get a good head coach that most people, even the national media, wouldn't even expect you to be able to go for, right? You go and pay the money. Look, IU has one of the biggest endowments in the country. There are donors all over the place. You can just randomly go and get $50 million for Assembly Hall and somebody will pay it. Okay.
Go buy out a basketball coach and someone's there to pay it.
Somebody is there to pay it for Indiana, right? And that's kudos to the obviously athletic staff for finding these donors, right? But if IU wants to be taken seriously, if IU wants to possibly challenge for an expanded playoff, if IU just wants to be relevant and stay in the Big Ten, they need a relevant football program. And right now, we are not relevant at all. And honestly, if you're looking and you're predicting the future of a Tom Allen program, it doesn't look like we're going to be very relevant next year, and it doesn't look like we're going to be very relevant the year after. And so something has to change. And we talked about it last year, and this partly goes to what you guys talked about with Aaron Hiller, is he should have been changed last year. There is no excuse why he wasn't changed last year. And honestly, it makes me scared about the future under Tom Allen and for the future of the program as far as the athletic staff goes, and the athletic department, because they're holding on to guys that are mediocre at best too long, right? It's too long. In 2022, in the age of the buyout, there is certain things that need to happen for Indiana to become relevant in college football and save a spot in the Big Ten. I'm not saying Big Ten is willing to kick us out in the next 5 years. I have no insider knowledge.
You got to watch your back.
If you're projecting, right, and you're looking forward,
got to watch your back.
You have to have a program that competes so that you aren't the one being discussed about. Because then all of a sudden, teams, recruits don't want to come to you because you're not going to be in the big. It's going to get seriously cutthroat here, especially with the influx of money from NIL, especially with the influx of money now from these multi-billion-dollar, even close to $1 trillion TV deals that are being thrown around for sports. College football is king. It's like the second most popular sport in America. And IU needs to start taking it seriously that they need to be contending. And I'm not sure Tom Allen's the guy who will be the serious contending part, because a lot of the mistakes I saw on Saturday have been mistakes that have been constant under Tom Allen's leadership. And if anything, they've gotten worse. Jimbo
to Indiana. Let's make it work, Matt. Let's make it work.
I don't want Jimbo. Sure.
Lane Kiffin to Indiana. Look, I guess what I'm saying is, you had given sort of two options there. I think the better option is Tom Allen surrounded with high quality offensive assistants, right? Because Indiana's only point of relevance in my lifetime was in 2019 and in 2020. And Tom Allen was the head coach for those years. Yeah. And when he was the head coach for those 2 years, he had an electrifying offensive coordinator who will be a resource for him. All Kalen DeBoer is going to do is look more and more like a positive success story, thanks to Tom Allen, as Michael Penix continues to set program records at Washington. And he had an athletic, he had a high-flying offense with a really solid offensive line with guys like Simon Stepaniak and Hunter Littlejohn and Coy Cronk holding down the fort ahead of Michael Penix. And your comment there to me, as far as Indiana slow to the punch, like you see it every week with the players on the field. Why does Sean Shivers continue to get the majority of the touches out of the backfield? It's not Sean Shivers is horrible. It's Josh Henderson has really proven himself. Every time Josh Henderson touches the football, I sit here and I say, well, that looks good. Oh, that looks nice. Oh, that's a good play. Wow, Josh Henderson touchdown catch. Oh, there's another Josh Henderson touchdown. And it could help Sean Shivers to reduce his workload and have him as a third down back. Why is it that up front, it took so long to make that change to Darren Hiller? Why is it that even now we're not seeing Emory Simmons play a larger and larger role as the third wide receiver? At Indiana, you can be very quick. You can be very quick to make changes. you're almost playing with house money, right? With IU men's basketball, everything is slow and everything is calculated and everything is groundbreaking and game changing. If you bench a point guard or if you play a small lineup, there are gonna be people all up in arms on social media. Indiana football, you can swap your quarterback out. You can have a unique game plan. You can play the better running back, right? Like there's nothing that's holding you down here at IU. And what's frustrating is, again, my lifetime, Tom Allen was the head coach at Indiana for the 2 seasons where this team was relevant. And so I still think he's the guy. And every week now, I'm hooked into this team because just when you think it's bad, they put together a really impressive touchdown drive. But then, of course, as you saw, just when you think it's really good, they make you want to pull your hair out because they can't stop the backup quarterback. And so when I sit here, I'm saying, look, I'll be there on Saturday at Rutgers covering this game for Indiana HQ. I'm kind of fascinated to see how this looks. But Tom Allen, make changes, man. This is your program, and you can get this team back to consistently being a factor in the Big Ten.
Yeah, changes are needed, right? If you are not making changes when something is working in college football, you are hindering your team to the nth degree.
Wisconsin fired their head coach who had a 70% win percentage.
Yeah. I mean, I think Paul Chryst would be a good at for a program like Indiana. But like you look what Brett Bielema is doing at Illinois, by the way. We can talk about that as well as far as
good one.
Sometimes you just need a change. And I love Tom Allen as a person, and I'm not saying fire him necessarily.
Right.
But I'm saying the athletic department needs to look at one, options, and two, they, especially with the expansion now coming in with the 2 LA teams coming in, who knows who comes after them. IU needs to put money into the program. Yep. Okay, it needs to happen.
Be brave.
I get that it's a risk, right? It's like gambling, because if you get the wrong guy, then you have to pay an enormous buyout, and now you look stupid and there's pie in your face, right?
Yeah,
I get that. Right. But not trying is worse. Okay, it's actually just worse now, and you are now entering the stage of college football where gambling not only is legalized in the United States, but is legalized in college football, which is going and paying guys money they might not deserve yet to then go and prove, and to get guys that might have a prestige that is better than your program. So while I'm sure Walt Bell is a nice guy, was Walt Bell at the prestige to be Indiana offensive coordinator of old? Yes. I think undoubtedly, yes. He goes to UMass and wins 0 games. And that would be the normal old IU offensive coordinator, would it not?
Yeah.
That's not the guy that Indiana needs to go for in 2022. Yeah. You need a dude that is above Indiana. That's somebody's like, why didn't he take a job at Indiana? Why did he take a job at Indiana? He should be taking a job at Michigan, at Ohio State, at Wisconsin, at Oklahoma. You need to be going for guys that surprise national media, not go, oh, sleeper news, I'll talk about it later.
Well, that's where programs like you said, Tennessee, Syracuse, etc., have really capitalized Kansas as far as getting their programs consistently into the top 25. Charlie, I'm going to ask you this question here. You know, the offensive line, as you saw, Indiana made a change with Darren Hiller, and they improved. And you saw all of a sudden Connor Bazelak got a little bit more time. And for what it's worth, Indiana, in a game where they were a 10-point underdog, held a fourth quarter lead, and frankly, put their fans in a position where they said Indiana should have won this game. Are you more encouraged about this football team now or less encouraged after that Maryland game? You know, it's one of those things where you made the change, offensive line improved, but you still threw the game away. Are you more encouraged or less encouraged about the 2022 Indiana Hoosiers football team now than you were last week?
I said last week that the only way that I would be okay with Indiana losing if it was close, and oh my goodness, was it. Now, did Indiana fumble the bag? Absolutely.
Literally.
It's a classic Indiana Hoosiers move. It's how it works sometimes. I do believe, and I'm very excited and optimistic about the future of this football team just based on that Maryland game. I said I was going to come back with an opinion on how I feel that they're going to do, and I think that they showed out. Maryland is no joke. I said that coming in.
They're a really good team.
I don't know. They are. IU beat Illinois. Illinois is ranked number 18. Granted, it was the first game of the season. IU held their own against number 4 Michigan for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
IU played and had the lead against Maryland into the fourth quarter, if I'm not wrong. It was in the fourth quarter. They are a team that runs out of stamina. That's fixable. I don't know if Tom Allen's the problem. I think it's a little bit more of, I want to say it's a mindset thing. The team is great. The athleticism is there. You talked about Josh Henderson getting the yards that nobody expected him to get in the beginning of the season.
So there.
Bazelak stepping up in a bigger way than anybody could have imagined, than I thought he was going to step up. He is really doing his job. There are dumb interceptions. There are stupid turnovers.
But he's a college quarterback. That's going to happen.
Exactly. IU needs that mentality. Maybe, and I've talked about this, I think, every podcast I've been on about IU football, maybe they need to stop with the quick snaps and calm down for a second and just they need endurance, they need stamina. This IU team, this loss, I'm going to take as a win and walk away with, because Maryland is no joke. The Big Ten is no joke, and they're holding their own.
Oh, Maryland went to Michigan and lost by 7, which, seeing how Penn State did on Saturday was a very impressive accomplishment by the Terps in Ann Arbor. Indiana, I mean, again, they ran 80 odd plays against Maryland on Saturday. Josh Henderson had 8 touches for 80 yards. 8. How does that compute? I don't know. But Indiana now heads to Rutgers Saturday at noon on Big Ten Network. By the way, folks, yes, Jack Tuttle did enter the transfer portal earlier on Monday. It felt like as you watch this team more and more, Dexter Williams, Brennan Sorsby were in favor of this coaching staff. Tuttle was always engaged on the sideline. He will remain with the team. And so it's going to be a situation where Jack Tuttle will try to find playing time next year after the season concludes. So that was a little bit of news that came down the pipeline earlier on Monday. But as IU takes on Rutgers Saturday in Piscataway, New Jersey, Rutgers is a 3-point favorite with the over-under at 45.5. That means, yes, Vegas sports books have it at about a 24-21 Rutgers win. The Scarlet Knights are 3-3 on the season, 0-3 in the Big Ten. They are the only team without a Big Ten victory. They come off 3 straight losses, including 14-13 to Nebraska about 2 weeks ago. Rutgers comes off a bye. Indiana had won 5 straight in the series until Rutgers won in Bloomington last year, 38-3 under Greg Schiano. Rutgers is kind of an unknown at quarterback. Noah Vedral, Evan Simon have kind of alternated there since Vedral returned from injury. Gavin Wimsatt will also be available for the Scarlet Knights on Saturday, so it's going to be an interesting situation. Tom Allen is aware of that in his preparation for Rutgers. So. He basically says, I don't know what, the quarterback is going to be something we have to adjust to. Rutgers did fire their offensive coordinator after losing to Nebraska, so they'll have a new offense after the bye week. Nunzio Campanile is the offensive coordinator. He was the 2019 interim head coach at Rutgers, so he is someone who is familiar with the Scarlet Knight program. They have a really good defense. Indiana is going to face a tougher defense against Rutgers than they did against Maryland on Saturday, but of course the flip side is there as well. Rutgers' offense is absolutely horrible and will be the easiest offense Indiana has played in a while. Matt, as you look at this game, Rutgers is basically, if you give them 3 points for home field advantage, a team that's basically at the same level as Indiana is. A lot of this game will, I think, come down to just mindset and psychology. As you see this, Indiana's a team that plays fast. Rutgers is a team that plays good defense. We'll see what Indiana's mentality is after losing to Maryland this past Saturday. What are you looking out of as far as Indiana is concerned? Are there who are 1 or 2 Hoosier players you're looking to step up in this game if Indiana is to find their 4th win of the season?
Well, I don't know if I can say that he needs to step up, but I hope he plays. That's Aaron Casey.
Yes,
I would like to see
certainly.
back on defense. That would be nice. And then I think honestly, I'm gonna stay on the defensive side because if we're gonna win this game, we're gonna have to keep them to very little points, if not any points at all.
Less than 20, I would think.
Less than 20. And Taiwan Mullen has had a disappointing senior year so far. He honestly was supposed to be the lockdown corner that we all, everybody thought he was. I think he was preseason All-American. And now I don't think he even gets anywhere close to that. He's let up a lot of penalties, a lot of catches that are just like very unexpected for his entire career at Indiana. He's been a guy that like you just don't throw at if you're their teams. Like just don't throw at him. It's bad. And he hasn't been that guy this year. I can't really put a finger on if it's like the scheme he's in, if he's slumping, is there an injury? Like he hasn't played well. If Indiana is going to make a bowl game, they're going to need to win against Rutgers. They're going to need to win against Michigan State, and then they're going to have to upset somebody. And
it's going to be Purdue. You're not beating Ohio State or Penn State this year.
I mean,
Penn State?
Could beat Penn State.
Right,
Penn State might be beatable, but at home, Penn State might be beatable. But that's a big but. That means there's going to have a lot of people on this team that are going to need to step up. There are going to be a lot of changes to be on this team that we have yet to see. So can Taiwan Mullen pull himself together and have a better second half of the year, especially starting with this Rutgers game? Because Lord knows what they're going to do with the quarterback. Rutgers quarterback situation is a mess. Honestly, they don't play very well, even when they do play. And that is something that, again, Taiwan can take advantage of. He just has to play up to the level that we all know that he's capable of.
Ohio State's C.J. Stroud was 13 of 22 for 154 yards with 2 touchdowns and an interception against Rutgers defense. Nebraska's Casey Thompson was 24 of 36 for 232 yards with 2 touchdowns and 2 picks against this Rutgers defense. Charlie, if you're looking at how Indiana can get to 24 against Rutgers on Saturday, who are 1 or 2 Hoosiers you're looking to step up on the offensive side of the ball to make sure that Indiana gets into the end zone and gets to that 24-plus point mark?
I think it obviously starts with the offensive line. Just not repeating what they did in the Maryland game, but building off of it. We talked about how bringing in a new offensive
Rod Carey.
Bringing in Rod Carey it was going to be hit or miss. We were either going to see a big change right away, or we were going to see a slow build, or we were going to see the exact same thing we saw at the beginning of the season. We saw a little bit of a change in IU's offensive line, which is good, moving in the right direction. Giving Bazelak the time he needs to get the ball off is number one. And secondly, so offensive line giving him time, because Bazelak's good. Under pressure, he throws it away. Those lead to dumb interceptions, and it's a whole mess. That was something that I think the IU coaches were actually worried about going into the season. Something I read is that he's known to throw it away a lot, which is fine in pressured situations. But giving him time in the pocket's number one. Having somebody to throw to is number two. We've seen Camper. He's a classic Indiana wide receiver. He's really lifting a lot right now. We didn't see a lot from
DJ Matthews, right? DJ Matthews. Now he did play. He was active on Saturday. Not too much as far as the deep threat stuff, but it was good to see him back on the field, and you would think he builds off of that here in his second game coming up against Rutgers.
Yeah, and then the final player that I think IU needs to focus on a little bit more is Emory Simmons, who we saw a lot of in the what game did he step up in?
It's really the last three. It's been like Nebraska, Michigan, Rutgers. Nebraska, Michigan, Maryland.
I'm blanking. He actually did incredible. He had 99 yards.
Yeah.
He needs to keep playing the way he's. I don't know why I said he needs to step up. He needs to keep playing the way he is. He's established himself, in my eyes, as that third wide receiver IU's been looking for all season. If Emory Simmons is open, Bazelak has time in the pocket, Camper's running around. if he's got the tools he needs on the field and the time he needs in the pocket, IU football, IU's offense is going to crush this Rutgers team.
I can't wait to see how that looks. If we talk about DJ Matthews from Saturday, he played 31 of Indiana's 79 snaps. So you think, on Saturday against Rutgers, maybe he gets a little bit more playing time. Indiana could be best targeting the opposite corner from Avery Young, who's an NFL draft prospect in Rutgers secondary. Can identify him on the field, throw it to the other corner that's guarding whoever it is, DJ Matthews, Emery Simmons, etc. Rutgers has a really good edge combination in Tyreen Powell and Aaron Lewis. Lewis is the sixth highest graded defensive player in college football, according to Pro Football Focus. At the end of the day, Indiana has the second worst turnover margin in the FBS, -13, which is something that Tom Allen has preached since taking over as head coach at Indiana. When you're -13, that means you're both giving it away too much and not taking it away enough. And Indiana has a chance, I think, to actually get to like a +3 in this game against Rutgers, and we will see what happens. Matt, is there something you want to say? Oh man. Hold on, I'm having a little bit of a tech thing here. Give me just a sec. Here, you guys keep going. Having a little bit of a tech problem.
The defensive coordinator at the time is doing fantastic at South Alabama right now as a head coach. Right there, I believe South Alabama. Correct me if I'm wrong. They were receiving votes in the AP Top 25 this week. I believe they received 2 votes. So again, some of that work from that defense is now being shown on the national stage. But I look at this and good Tom Allen teams force turnovers, and this is not a good Tom Allen team. So not only are they not forcing turnovers, they're turning over the ball, which is not a recipe for success. And anybody knows even a half a percent of total football knowledge will tell you that losing the turnover battle is usually a bad thing.
And now I'm back here, folks. Indiana also has the one of the worst touchdown rates in the red zone. The good news
that's also terrible.
Yeah, where Indiana scored a touchdown 50% of their red zone possessions. That is 109th of the FBS. If it makes you feel better, Rutgers is 122nd. They've scored touchdowns on 42% of their red zone possessions. So either both field goal kickers will have a lot going for them, or the tide turns here and look, both teams get a few touchdowns as Indiana takes on Rutgers Saturday.
Nathan, I watched, because I hate myself, I watched that Iowa Rutgers game.
Oh yeah,
entirely from snap till the last spike of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you this: Rutgers offense is disgusting. They made Iowa's offense look decent. Okay, so I really hope that Indiana can win this game. I have some bad news for you guys. I don't think we are, but we can get to that in a second.
We'll get to it in just a second. It's first time for our social media shout, and we'll make this one pretty quick. We're going to tip our cap to Kyle Schwarber, who was a key factor in the Philadelphia Phillies making the NLCS. They're going to take on the San Diego Padres coming up starting Tuesday night.
Very happy. Shout out, Dad.
And Schwarber is someone who's really pumped up about the Phillies fan base, who had one of the best baseball environments I've ever seen, as the Phillies knocked off the Braves in the NLDS. Schwarber hitting leadoff for Philadelphia, at least against right-handed pitching, maybe against left-handed as well. Can't wait to see if the Phillies can make a run to the World Series. Yankees reliever Scott Effross, formerly an Indiana Hoosier, he was unable to pitch for the Yankees in the playoffs due to injury. We hope Effross can recover as quickly as possible here and become a factor out of the bullpen for New York. Folks, quick reminder, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube at Indiana HQ, as well as at the Hoosier Sound. You can follow us there on our socials. On Instagram, Matt, we are not Indiana HQ, but what are we?
Again, I get to do this. Indiana.HQ. There's a dot there. Period.
Exactly. Correct. And that's exactly where you can find us. I see some of the new followers we've had recently over the last week. Join the team, folks. We can't wait to see you over there on Instagram. So let's talk about it, guys. Indiana Rutgers Saturday. It's a 3-point spread. Rutgers projected by the sports books to win 24-21. Matt, I'll start with you. Who do you have winning this game and by how much?
I'm going to want to rip my eyeballs out after this game. I think Indiana is 4-3 against the spread this year. I believe that they continue that trend and they go to 5-3 against the spread, but they continue to lose games. And I believe that the final score will be a abysmal, atrocious, horrendous 7-6.
Oh my God.
To Rutgers. We are going to watch one of the worst football games you have ever experienced on Saturday. And if you are willing to submit yourself to that, I, for one, not only raise you a glass of beer, I'll raise you 2 shot glasses as well. I don't have them in my hand. They're imaginary, but here you go. Bonus
Rutgers question for you. Do you think Dexter Williams or Donovan McCulley take a quarterback snap in this game?
I believe that Donovan McCulley will, and I believe that not Dexter Williams, who's the freshman behind
Brennan
Dexter
Sorsby.
Williams. I believe that Brennan Sorsby will take a snap.
Right. Yeah. Charlie, how about you? Who do you have winning this game and by how much? And then I'll ask you the quarterback question as well.
I've got IU winning 17-7.
Ooh, double figures. All right.
That's a lot.
Generous.
Can't wait to see Indiana do that. If they play the way they played against Maryland and Michigan, they probably should come away winning this game. It's supposed to be really nice in Piscataway on Saturday, by the way. Should be comfortable football weather in the 60s and sunny. Charlie, though, same question to you. Do you think either of Indiana's backup quarterbacks, that is Dexter Williams or Brendan Sorsby, as well as the wide receiver Donovan McCulley, who played quarterback last year, do you think any of those guys take quarterback snaps for Indiana on Saturday?
I think McCulley is always up in the air. He always gets a one or two wild. He got what? He's had 3 or 4 wild.
Like a wildcat snap here and there.
Yeah. I think he'll get one of those. But honestly, I don't see Indiana trying anything too different, straying away from the playbook.
Wait, they're not going to change something? What? You're kidding me.
He's pissed off, Matt. They're
crazy.
Pissed him off. Indiana. Well, and that's, I don't know. I do think we see a little Dexter Williams on Saturday. I have nothing behind this, just speculating, just thinking. You saw Indiana
speculation.
You saw Indiana whip out a trick play on Saturday. I didn't know those existed. And you saw Indiana throw a couple nice perimeter screens on Saturday, and I didn't know those existed. And so
Bazelak with a run too for what?
Yeah, you saw a little read option pull with Bazelak there.
Yeah, that's the first time this year, by the way, that I can remember off the top of my head that we've done a read option and he actually pulled the ball.
It was the second time.
That's worse. Honestly, that we've played 7 games this year and he's pulled it twice.
He doesn't look terrible when he's running with it. And so
but twice.
Yeah. I think both of you are giving way too much credit to the defenses in this game. I think Indiana's going to win 27-23 at Rutgers as the Hoosiers and the Scarlet Knights. I'll say 27-24. I think Indiana takes the dub. I'm not going to lie. Like, I know I'm in the minority here, but 2022 IU football has really hooked me in. It's really captivating because it started with Indiana winning that game against Illinois. And we framed that as a must-win game for this program because nothing was possible this season if you couldn't beat Illinois, which in hindsight is madness. And then they did it. And then every game you see things that make you go, it looks so bad so often, but then in the second half, they crush Cincinnati. And then against Michigan, they're tied at halftime. And against Maryland, they have a fourth quarter lead. And I know I'm in the minority here, and I see the look on Matt's face. And you can rebut if you want, Matt. They hook me in. They keep me interested.
What have the Chicago Bears done to you?
What
have they done to you?
Indiana
they have
is
made
more
you
interesting.
respect bad football. That's you need to go to therapy, Nathan. You need to go to football therapy.
Yeah, well, that's what this podcast
they're still the most entertaining team in college football. I will say.
They're entertaining in the worst way possible. But
that's what hooks you in. That's what gets you. That's what the Bears.
I want to tear my eyeballs from the eye sockets every single time I see Connor Bazelak take 3 steps and chuck it 95 yards down the field out of bounds.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of Rutgers coach, or after Indiana's by James Franklin, Ryan Day, Mel Tucker, Jeff Brown. If you're preparing for Indiana, I don't even know what you look at. I really don't. I know Indiana plays fast, and that's really it. And so as you watch 4 hours or 3.5 hours of football, is this team that looks so bad at times, and then all of a sudden they go on this run where they score a touchdown against Michigan and they're down 7 after 3 quarters, or they completely flummox a really good Cincinnati team for a stretch. And you go, what in the world are we watching? I'm in the minority. We don't have. I understand, but I tell you, they're more interesting than the Bears, Matt. I'll tell you that much.
that doesn't take that. But
yeah, I know
that doesn't take a lot. That just actually exploded my brain.
The Bears are going to win the Super Bowl this year.
No, what? Okay. Anyways.
Okay. All right. Well, that's who we have as far as the Indiana Rutgers
game. That is
game.
volcanic.
I just
That's
know
what that tape is.
I just know it's going to be a weird game against Rutgers, like it was weird against Maryland, Michigan, Illinois, Western Kentucky, Cincinnati, Nebraska, Idaho. I just know that's what's going to happen here as far as Indiana's game Saturday is concerned. And if they win, they'll be 4-4, and the vibes will be interesting again. Can't wait. Well, guys, look, Indiana Rutgers is not the only Big Ten game in action on Saturday. We have 4 other conference contests: Iowa, Ohio State, and Columbus, Northwestern, Maryland, as the Terps try to proceed with life, likely without Taulia Tagovailoa. I did not see the injury update with him. I'll try to find it here before we wrap. Purdue, Wisconsin, interesting one there. And then the primetime affair Saturday night, Minnesota, Penn State. Side note, kind of pisses me off that every one of the Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State games are all at noon. I think it's really stupid. And I feel like some of those games, if not all of them, should be in primetime or at least a 3:30 start. So you get that under the lights feeling in the second half.
Nobody wanted to watch the game outside of a Michigan fan. I promise you.
Just not like I'm sorry, big noon Saturday. What are we doing? And I think that's supposed to stay in place even after USC and UCLA come in. So I don't know. But anyway, number of point spreads, number of over-unders that are interesting. Charlie, I'll throw it over to you first. Of these 5 games on Saturday, is there a point spread, an over-under, an upset pick, any one of those that you like as you look across the Big Ten landscape?
Without Tagovailoa, I think Maryland is going to crush Northwestern. I think that 13.5 spread is ridiculous. I also think the over-under is a little high, considering that I'm assuming it's Maryland scoring 51.5 points and Northwestern scoring 0. But I think that the over-under is going to be around, I don't know, I say over-under 30. 40 maybe, and then I think it's going to be a Maryland dub by at least 3 touchdowns.
Matt, how about you? Is there a point spread, an over/under, an upset?
Go to me last. Go to me.
Oh, okay.
Go to me
well,
last.
I do like Charlie's point about Maryland winning. I also think Purdue will straight up win at Wisconsin on Saturday. I think it's hard. I think Purdue's got the better quarterback. I think Purdue's got, obviously the more stable coaching staff. I've got the Boilermakers winning Saturday at Wisconsin straight up. All right, your turn, Matt.
All right, this is the first time in the history of the podcast I'm doing all 5 predictions because I'm actually fairly certain I know all 5. All right. Rutgers does not cover against the spread.
So Indiana covers. Let's positive.
Indiana covers, right? I said this before. I think they lose by 1. Ohio State covers against Iowa at home. That's minus 29. I think they win by 40. Maryland does not cover by a half a point. By a half a point, I believe
Maryland doesn't cover.
I believe that's a 20-7 game, by the way. Exactly. So again, take the under if you would like. Like Charlie said, if you're doing this as a parlay. By the way, I'm not responsible for your losses. Wisconsin does not cover. Purdue goes into Wisconsin and wins that easily. Penn State loses at home to Minnesota. Give me Minnesota over Penn State on Saturday. So that, again, if we'll go over it again, Indiana covering, Ohio State winning outright, Maryland not covering, Wisconsin losing outright, and then Penn State also losing outright.
There you go, folks. When Matt goes 5 for 5, you can thank us here at the Hoosier Sound.
Just put $2 on it. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's it. We're gonna wind down with some closing thoughts here. First, I would like to shout out the Gunn family. I did put out on Twitter earlier today that the last time Indiana was ranked in the top 15 for men's basketball was when CJ Gunn was 12 years old. And it looked like we got a mention from the Gunn family that the 12-year-old CJ, with their picture attached here, would probably say it's about time that Indiana is ranked in the top 15. And he now says, Chris Gunn here says, Chris Gunn Sr. says, let's go win it all. So
I think 12-year-old CJ knows what he's talking about.
That's right. Charlie, let's wind down here. Your closing thoughts on this Monday night. We covered a lot of ground here. What's on your mind as we wrap up here on October 17th?
IU football has I think we've seen everything from them. No, we haven't seen everything from them. We don't even know what everything is. But IU football has some tricks left in the bag. I think that they've got a lot to build off of. I say this every week, but they seem to be getting closer to looking almost okay for a little bit of time. And I think that that's something to look forward to as an IU Hoosier fan. IU basketball, I think that the ranking's a little high. They have to prove themselves before they're given the sticker of approval by, the AP poll, whatever. I think that both programs, no. I think that IU football needs to work on, getting into a respectable position in the Big Ten, and IU basketball needs to prove that they're a top 10 team in the nation.
Matt, how about you? Lots to discuss here, lots to go over on this Monday Night Podcast. What are your closing thoughts?
I just think as a collective, as a fan base, I'll go back to my rant. A collective as a fan base, we need to put pressure on the athletic department to actually spend money on football. Right? I think it's about time. Right? Whether that's backing your head coach. Like I like to do this at the end of the podcast because I know our hardcore listeners are listening and I want to give them a treat. So I might go to a different sport and give another example.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a certain manager or a certain coach just needs a little bit of a financial backing. I'm an Arsenal fan. So you look at the way Mikel Arteta started at Arsenal, was kind of mediocre, didn't have the best results, had some promising starts and then kind of faded off at the end. They started to work with him and legitimately put people in places and give him money to work with. And now Arsenal is first 4 points clear at the top of the table about a third of the way through the season. And that's not a place that Arsenal has been in a long time. And you look at, I'm not expecting Indiana to be challenging for a Big Ten title. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you give a head coach money, you give him the ability, tools at his disposal to use. And if you actually genuinely believe in that guy, you do give him the bank account, you give him the checkbook and go make yourself successful. And I think it's about time that Indiana genuinely takes this serious because we could be looking at next year. I have no previous knowledge of this, but we could be out of the Big Ten East next year, right? If they could just take away divisions with the additions of USC and UCLA, and just kind of go into a randomized schedule, right? Like a tiered schedule or whatever it might be. And if they do that, like the Big 12 does, like the Pac, like a couple of conferences, like the American does, you might see Indiana have a chance in a season where they have a decent schedule. They have a schedule like Purdue's, right? Where they play one of the big teams and they play a bunch of the worst teams in the league. where Indiana genuinely could sneak their way into a playoff conversation.
Sure.
And so it's about time with the expansion of the Big Ten and the expansion of the playoff that Indiana puts their money where their mouth is and actually goes for it, because you have the money in the athletic program, you have the money through the boosters, you have the money through the alumni and whatnot. Like, go make this football program better.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, big picture, folks. Thinking back to last Saturday, it was an unbelievable week of college football. I think it was pretty clearly the best weekend of college football post-pandemic, if not even beyond that, but definitely post-pandemic. I mean,
5-6 years,
unbelievable atmospheres, unbelievable games. You can see the conference play. It basically leads to very small margins, right? As long as you have somewhat competitive, legit teams playing. Indiana, Maryland was part of that. Again, Maryland was 11-point favorite, and it was a tooth and nail game down to the wire, even with the Talia injury. But I mean, the atmospheres across the board in Rocky Top and in Utah, that was the nightcap on Saturday night. Florida State had an amazing atmosphere. Yep. Overall, wonderful to see. Of course, the Big House as great as usual. And it was amazing.
Nathan, I want Indiana to be a part of that. I remember I was there for that Friday night first game of the season against Ohio State. That atmosphere was amazing. Like the football program, the Indiana fans, the students who show out every single game. By the way, shout out the students, because they've the attendance actually has been fantastic.
Even the shirtless ones,
even the shirtless, especially the shirtless guys. I genuinely think that there could be something unlocked at Indiana that just hasn't been unlocked yet, and all it takes is not a little bit of money, but a lot of money to unlock it, and it takes a lot of guts from an athletic director that I think is willing to do that and has the guts to do that. Like, he went and got Mike Woodson when most of the staff or most of the fans wanted somebody like a Brad Stevens or Coach Beard, right? Like, he went and he went his own avenue and said, I'm going to put my, I'm going to put my job on line. I'm going to put my, reputation and career on the line for this guy, because I think he's the right fit. And, if you genuinely think that Tom Allen is the right fit, then you got to do the same thing for him. Right. So.
Can't wait to see how that plays out. I mean, I'm just rolling across all these games from Saturday. I forgot Baylor, West Virginia was electric on Thursday night. And that standalone game.
That TCU game was fantastic.
Oklahoma State, TCU, Wisconsin, Michigan State going into double overtime. I'm not sure how many folks had Michigan State winning. Nebraska, Purdue was excellent as well on Saturday night. Stanford, Notre Dame. Again, Purdue,
Stanford Notre Dame. Let's not talk about the Stanford Notre Dame.
Purdue's in a much better spot than Notre Dame is right now. Sorry about that, Charlie. Yeah. So, and hey, even if for those who really stayed on, San Jose State, Fresno State was quite a game on Saturday night as well. But anyway,
there were some dramatics at the end of that game. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
that about wraps it up for our 268th show of the Hoosiers Sound. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Dear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love, go Hoosiers.